In order for us to not say all black women, we use the term Shea Butter Sambas. And I want to go into detail about 10 different types of Shea Butter Sambas that exist. But before I go all into this topic, I'm going to give you a definition of what it looks like and some of the rules that come with being a Shea Butter Samba. I'm your host, Cool Colas, and you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. So let's get into it. A Shea Butter Samba is defined as a black woman who sees herself as an empowered black woman, a black woman who she is proud of, who embraces this idea of only empowering black women in the black community. And the reason why this is very important is because this type of individual actually doesn't like racism the same way that pro-blacks do not like racism. But they only care about the way that racism impacts black women exclusively. And you can usually see this type of thing when black women call themselves pro-black women, because there is a big difference between calling yourself pro-black and calling yourself a pro-black woman. They will even use platforms, opportunities, and other means of come up in order to besmirch or slight a black man. Or in some cases, they may not care if they do slight a black man in the process. So I want to be clear that the thing that makes them distinct is that they are still willing to slight and do anti-black things to black men. In other words, there's a layer of misandry to their behaviors. Pro-black, once again, means making black people a priority in every single area of activity. Pro-black woman means making black women exclusively a priority. Reason why I call them Shea Butter Sambas is because shea butter is a symbol of black women empowerment. When you think about shea butter, you think about something that's natural, a natural black woman, or a black woman who's proud of her black womanhood. And one big symbol of being proud of her black womanhood is how she takes care of her hair, almost in a natural way. So shea butter symbolizes that. Now, the Samba part is basically me just saying Sambo with an A because it's feminine. So what I'm basically saying is this is simply a coon who puts shea butter in her hair. The thing that I want to be clear about, and my other disclaimer, is this. Although some black women may exhibit traits that would make one suspect that they are a Shea Butter Samba, that may not be the case. They may do some things that are Shea Butter Samba-ish, but she may not be a full-blown Shea Butter Samba. However, there are certain behaviors, patterns, and things that would make a Shea Butter Samba what she is. And we need to look all into what that is supposed to look like. And there's like a rite of passage or some shit that a lot of these Shea Butter Sambas have. It's like a set of rules, or I guess signs you could even say, that this person might be a Shea Butter Samba. Like there's just certain things that they either are or that they do that could be an indication to them being a Shea Butter Samba, or could basically come with the territory. And I want to get into what all of those things look like. So the first rule or sign that you're speaking with a Shea Butter Samba or identifying a Shea Butter Samba is that she's posturing. Shea Butter Sambas operate in the art of being posturing. Now let's talk about what this means. In layman's terms, this means that to them, attention is like currency. So they believe in this idea of keeping up a certain image, looking a certain way, sounding a certain way, creating a certain aesthetic for themselves. This is why a lot of them love social media, because they can just show beautiful pictures of themselves and they know that there's a bunch of other women who are just going to love it. And they may even overlook their shitty attitude, how horrible they are, or the fact that they too are actually coons. So a lot of times they can get by because of the attention factor, the idea that people just love their imagery alone. So in other words, they don't necessarily care about solutions that actually are there to empower the black community as a whole. They care about optics. For them, it's all about how they look and who's watching. The second sign is that a lot of these Shea Butter Sambas are often non-foundational black American women, because a lot of them come from these immigrant backgrounds. And I'm not trying to say this is the case for every person who is of a black immigrant background, but a lot of times these Shea Butter Sambas who have more of that tether type of vibe already have some level of vitriol for the men who are in their country or in their continent. And so they bring that same vitriolic attitude over to America, and then they take all black men, they kind of throw them into one category and just say they hate black men. And you see this quite often. You see it where somebody who is not actually a foundational black American woman comes over to America and then says that they don't like black men for whatever reason, or they do something that again is hateful towards a black man. And often, again, this black man is a foundational black American, but the spirit that they're giving them is the spirit that they tend to give men who are of the same culture as them. The third sign or rule, whichever you would like to call this, is what I would call, or I guess I didn't really coin this, but I'm putting it into my definition, the septum ring theory. This was a theory that was created by brother Torrin Walker. Torrin Walker created this theory that a lot of times you can tell the type of woman who you're dealing with because she has a septum ring in her nose. Now, again, I don't want to get attacked by the damn all police. I really don't want to hear that shit because I'm not talking about all women who have a septum ring. But there are a lot of cases where chicks who have a septum ring and behave in other ways that a Shea Butter Samba would behave in carry the traits that show that they indeed have a level of disdain for black men. And what the septum ring symbolizes is rebellion in a way. It's this idea of doing something that's different, doing something that's off the wall. It's an act of rebelliousness. So it comes with the territory that they also, as an attitude and a behavior, would also be rebellious as well too. The fifth rule or sign of a Shea Butter Samba is that this woman is speaking the language of being argumentative, or she's often rebellious. A lot of these Shea Butter Sambas thrive in gigantic, chaotic arguments. And oftentimes it's not in good faith. If anything, it's for confirmation bias. It's for the need to be right. It's for the need to talk someone down and damn near emasculate them. So this is an individual who just thrives in being argumentative all the damn time, even when there's no reason to do what they're doing. They're basically a rebel without a fucking cause. And even when they're proven wrong, they don't actually admit it. They're terrible at accountability and admitting when they actually had a fault in their argument, what they said or what they did. And when they are proven wrong, they tend to move the goalpost, change definitions, or spin the argument into some bad faith shit that has nothing to do with the topic or just keeps the argument going. Some of you all are hearing this and you could say, well, this could be any woman. And all of this is very true, but right now we're talking about the ways that Shea Butter Sambas exclusively show up. And I also want to add to that, not all women exhibit all of these traits or are all these things that I named. And if they are one or two of these things, it's not to the degree that a Shea Butter Samba is some of these things. The first type of Shea Butter Samba is what we call a Shea Butter Mama. The other term that you can use, this is an alternative, is a Mama Samba. Now let's talk about what that is and what it looks like. A Shea Butter Mama is the original Shea Butter Samba. She was the woman who really started it all. She taught the Shea Butter Samba that you know today to be the person who she is. The Shea Butter Sambas that you see today are the daughters of these individuals. The Shea Butter Mama was very controlling. She was jealous of her daughter, typically, and she was usually abusive, both mentally and emotionally, to her son. She may or may not have been a single mother, but often she is a single mother. And these are individuals who you can definitely see in a lot of these old school classic black movies that were out back in the day. So movies such as Baby Boy, Boys in the Hood, Poetic Justice, Think Like a Man. These were all movies that portrayed some form of Shea Butter Mama, because the characters had some type of mother figure who was one, if not all of these things. Now, there's also branches of the Shea Butter Mama trope. Like, you got the Big Mama trope, which is kind of in that area. And then you also have the Shea Butter Auntie trope. So the Shea Butter Auntie trope is kind of similar to the Shea Butter Mama, but it's more of this whole woman who isn't a mother. She doesn't have a daughter or a daughter figure or anything like that who she is teaching to behave in a certain way. But she's kind of exhibiting the same traits as a Shea Butter Mama, but without having any type of progeny. She's just an aged out old hag who has the same control issues, the same chaos, the same jealousy, the same vitriolic energy that the Shea Butter Mamas do, and she tends to express it in her own little ways. And I want to be clear too, because I've said this a lot about Shea Butter Sambas. It sounds like I'm saying that she's antagonistic to black men. The thing about the Shea Butter Mama or the Shea Butter Auntie is they're not just antagonistic to black men, they're also antagonistic towards other black women as well too. And there'll be a lot of other black women that'll tell you about their asses. They create negative cycles of dysfunction by raising sons who they resent and also raising daughters who they are continuing to be jealous of. The second type of Shea Butter Samba, and a lot of y'all ain't gonna like this one, but I'm gonna say it anyway, is what I would call the herbal tea chick. Now, let's talk about the herbal tea chick. And if you don't want to use that term, because some people have used that before, another way to say it is the faux natural mystic chick. But I felt like that was a mouthful and I didn't want to say all that. And I want to be clear too, because I've been asked this before. What's so wrong with being an herbal tea chick? As an aesthetic, nothing. But if you have the behavior of a Shea Butter Samba, then it fits right into the category. And oftentimes, people who do have this aesthetic fit right into the category. So let's talk about it. Herbal tea chicks give off the facade, and this goes back to the thing of being posturing, of being natural, somebody who's woke, somebody who's spiritually in tune with different things that are almost out of body. She usually has sage and crystals and believes in the zodiac and does yoga, and she has septum rings quite often as well too, and that type of thing. And although they tend to present themselves as these peaceful, calm, enlightened spirits, it's ironic because they're quite the opposite. A lot of them are deeply troubled, chaotic, they hate men, and to be quite honest, they're kind of promiscuous. I mean, these are women that give more cat away than the animal rescue. In a way, I like to think of them as like elevated hood rats. It's funny, the evolution of the herbal tea chick is almost like Pokemon in a way. And let me explain what I mean by that. It's like when you have a Pokemon, there's a first evolution, and then when they evolve, they turn into something else. So for the herbal tea chick, the first form would be the hood rat, because this is where they generally start out as, or this would be the kind of lower form. And then when they are evolved with the moonstone, the crystals, they turn into the herbal tea chick. The third type of Shea Butter Samba is what we would call the lovable hood rat. Now, some of you all may think that this is a woman who doesn't really fit this category, but let me tell you why she does. This is the type of woman who is literally getting an aesthetic and getting attention from it by being a ratchet comic relief figure. Somebody who is some type of little chick that you done got up out the hood. Usually this is a chick who don't really look like too much of nothing. She's usually like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. And then they glam her up, they doll her up, and then they throw her on the big screen and she gets to twerking. And if she can rap on the beat a little bit, then she's good to go. You know, she's usually outspoken, she's funny, people like to call her real. And she uses humor to reinforce these stereotypes about black women. But that's not just what makes her a Shea Butter Samba. There's still a level of male hatred to these women. You know, even them doing a lot of the stuff that they're doing is an act of rebellion. And a lot of times they even refer to a lot of the black men who they deal with as violent, broke, useless, and all this other stuff because they had their own come up. And really their come up is the fact that they have been marketed as, again, the lovable hood rat, which led to dollars for them. Because again, if they can just rap on the beat a little bit, then they're good to go. And we've seen many examples of this. And I don't think that I have to tell y'all what those examples are now, do I? The fourth type of Shea Butter Samba is what I would call the race player. Now let me explain what this one is, because it's kind of similar to one I'm going to talk about later. The race player is like a double agent. They're somebody who likes to talk pro-black quite often. Now, we could get this confused with what I'm about to, again, say later on, which deals more with kind of like that activist type of figure. But a race player tends to behave initially like an activist, being very pro-black. And they say all types of greasy ass shit about white folks. They talk about how their asses stink. They talk about how they ain't shit. You know, they don't listen to the concerns of black people, all types of stuff. They're real pro-black online. They code switch though and get into assimilation offline. And they're always looking for clout and opportunities, but that's not even where the race play factor really comes in. A lot of them are race players because although they talk cash shit about white people in a lot of our faces and online, they will turn around, they'll get them as addy. So a lot of times they'll turn around and although they will be talking real pro-black, they'll sleep white. And the reason why is because with this whole race play thing, there's like this buildup of tension, like this, I'm this really pro-black woman and you're this racist white man and I just want to take it all out on you in the bedroom. Like it's some slaying of the beast type ritual. This is some anti-black shit. I ain't gonna lie. It don't seem like it is, but it is. And it's fake as hell. Let's be real. The fifth type of Shea Butter Samba is what I would call the Blackaren. And mind you, I want to be clear. The Blackaren term is not actually my term. The Blackaren term was a term that was created by my brother, Torian Rain Reloaded. Shout out to him. Go follow his channel if you are not already following him in what he does. So the Blackaren is a weaponizer. She tries to emulate the role of a white woman. Obviously, she doesn't have all the benefits of a white woman, but she tries to emulate that behavior. She uses fake tears, fragility, and these HR complaints against black men as a means to do what she's doing and behave the way that she's behaving. She tries to make it seem like there's a systemic thing where black men are oppressing black women. She tries to make it seem like there are unsafe conditions because of the behaviors of black men. If anything, she's willing to tackle more of the issues with black men than she is anti-black racism as a whole. Now, she may speak up about racism here or there, right, if it affects her, but ultimately her main goal is to get that black man who she's angry, upset, and frustrated with, and again, turn it into a systemic thing. And we've seen examples of this quite often as well, too. Matter of fact, I just talked about this in a video where I was describing your girl Ari Lennox's behavior, where she was going on and on about all the black men who have said things and done things that she feels have attacked her personally. The next one, and I really want to talk about this one because this one's been on my chest for a minute, are the academia Sambas, or some people would like to call them the pre-office mammies. And I guess we can also throw office mammies into this category as well, too. Usually they play the role of the nice girl or like the girl blur, the real intelligent black girl who grows up and she gets into corporate and she gets really heavy into academia. And she's the person who always talked about how she was so overlooked, you know, when she was growing up. You know, she was always a nice girl, and then she ended up embracing academia and corporate spaces and things like that because that was her come up. And that was the way that she was going to show everybody that she wasn't one to really be overlooked. She's the type of woman that would tell you something that a white institution would tell you is the way to think about empowerment instead of actually trusting grassroots individuals and activists who are doing things on the ground, who are pro-black and are all about justice and or compensatory justice for black people. You know, they love to weaponize their academic corporations and push narratives that demonize black men even. And they try to present themselves in a way as this safe, educated alternative, when oftentimes these are spaces where white people are giving them opportunities to basically undermine black people, specifically black men, while they can while black men are not going to be given the same opportunities or treated in the same way. So they're being used as pawns essentially, whereas black men are the targets that they're feeding these office mammies to. A lot of this is a result of what I would call the college box theory. For those of you all who have never heard of this, the college box theory is something that I came up with a while ago, where I have this belief that because the old niggas sent all of their kids to college, that it turned into a space where they had to fend for themselves, and it created gimmicks and aesthetics as a result of it, instead of them actually having real tangibles and things to pass down. So they have businesses and things like that that they could go to if they got into a jam, so they wouldn't have to go to work for people who they hate. But while in college, they ended up taking up certain roles. What I notice is that a lot of the black men who don't end up embracing that grassroots spirit aim and achieve to be part of the black boule in some way. And then the black women, in a way, it was the beginning of them embracing some level of feminism. And they do that through academia. It's this idea of, I've been put in a position where I go to learn and I go to do all these other things so I can end up fending for myself. And when they find out that they can achieve all these opportunities, their thing is, what the hell do I need a man for? So it becomes a thing of, they almost resent the black men who they were known to have a thought that they were going to be taken care of from. And when they find out that they can do shit on their own, they don't have to worry about being taken care of by a man and listening to him and all this other stuff. They can just get a position in academia and everything is all good for them. But then it turns into vitriol and all this other bullshit. The reason why I don't feel bad is because these are the same people who would bitch about nice guys and all this other stuff, but they were the quote unquote nice girls who really weren't so nice. They ended up becoming office mammies who will try to embarrass you in front of your coworkers, your white coworkers at that. The seventh one is what I would call the big sassy Sambas. Now let me break this one down for y'all. These are women who are usually bitter and loud. Now, they may be one or the other, or they may be both. It just really depends. So usually this is a heavy-set woman who embraces sass as empowerment. And I've talked about this concept before. There's generally two types of big women. You get the big women who are almost kind of like a sister figure, and then you get these big sassy Sambas. The ones that are like the sister figures are, and I know a lot of brothers probably met this type of woman in college. You know, she usually was a little heavy set, and I'm not dogging her for being heavy set. I don't want to get that. I don't want people to get that vibe. That's what I'm doing. But she usually was heavy set. She usually was real cool, real down to earth, a real good cook, a great friend. She's the type of person who will go to bats for you. She's the type of person at a party with you. She's the type of person that would give you advice, have your back, and listen to you when you talk about other women. Again, I'm not trying to dog her, but if anything, I'm trying to give props because this was usually a cool chick. The flip side of that is the big woman who feels like she got overlooked for such a long time, so she's bitter. And as a result of getting overlooked so much, they take their weight, them being heavy set, and they try to turn that into its own archetype. They add sass to it, and they like to kind of cloak all of their attitude issues and eventually Sambaism in body positivity and that type of rhetoric. And then in some cases, they may not even be bitter. They may not even be angry, but they're willing to do kind of mammy shit. And they don't care how it looks. Like, think about people like Lizzo. Think about when Lizzo was playing the flute of that famous racist and she was acting real crazy on stage and shit like that. That was really a bad look, y'all. The eighth type of Shea Butter Samba is what we call the Shea Butter celebrity. Now, let me tell you about this type of woman. This is usually a celebrity who is a sellout. They accept roles, endorsements, and other opportunities that may or may not have the intention of disrespecting black men or the black community in general. And then they may publicly try to make themselves seem like they are pro-black, but in practice, they end up becoming these political shields, and they do it for money. That's why you see a lot of these black female celebrities who will go and get on these political platforms, specifically for the Democrats, and they'll try to convince everybody to vote for so-and-so. A lot of them aren't pro-black. They're just doing these things because they know that this is an opportunity for them to get a bag. So that's why you see a lot of these Megan Thee Stallions and all these other people who will put on basically concerts while there's a Democratic Party campaign that's going on, because they're trying to use their image and their notoriety as a way to sway people to vote for a certain candidate, instead of allowing that candidate to actually stand on their policies and allow black people to vote on them based on their policies. To be clear, the harm and the impact in all this is that they normalize harmful images of black men from an indirect standpoint. They are silent on conversations about justice, and they never redirect their focus towards the white corporations who really are giving them the opportunities that they have in the first place. Now we get into one of the categories of Shea Butter Samba that I actually said I was going to talk about a little bit earlier. And this is what I would call the trendy activist. This is a woman who is a gender-only revolutionary, somebody who is fake pro-black. They try to position themselves as a very pro-black person when a lot of times they're just a Democratic shield, or when they're doing what they're doing, it's because there's a trendy thing that's going on. See, the thing that I don't like about them is that they're trying to present themselves as the leaders of pro-Blackness, and they kind of go along with that Obama bullshit where it's like black women are the new leaders of the pro-black movement, or whatever the case is. They try to create themselves as an image of that. But let's be real. I do this shit all day, every day. Anybody who knows me knows I talk about pro-blackness all the time. So I can spot a fake from a mile away, and I can spot what their real motive is. People can't read me because the truth is that whenever I talk about things related to the black community, I don't go into politics and leaning left or leaning right. I focus on what helps black people exclusively. These are individuals who are only focused on what helps black women, and that's a problem. These are individuals who are basically not here for the black community as a whole. They're only here for black women. They're literally the epitome of what a Shea Butter Samba truly is. And to be quite honest with you, they're not even really doing it because they care about the activism piece. They're doing it because, again, it's trendy and it looks cool to do so. Also, too, another thing that they tend to do is that they use their own stories of oppression as currency, and they frame themselves as the only victims of white supremacy. And black men in the process are either used as props in their trauma, villains altogether, or just agents who aided in this white supremacy taking place, this racism happening against them. And then there's the last quick category, which I would call the black male blamer, or like the black feminist blamer is, I think, a good way to describe it. It's like every problem in their life and in their community is pinned on black men. I mean, they literally interpret systemic racism through blaming black men first instead of putting black people first. I mean, it's to the point where these individuals will even go as far as to say that white supremacy isn't a problem and we shouldn't even really be complaining about white supremacy. I mean, these are individuals that, will say shit like black women would be free if black men weren't holding us back. These are individuals who could quickly turn into what I would call an anti-Shea Butter Samba, which is a divester. These are individuals who literally, would blame a black man for any particular thing that would happen to them. And as a result, they tend to make decisions that are adverse to that, or in spite of that. So that's why, again, a lot of them will divest and they'll go talk to, white men or whatever, and have much less requirements of their behavior and who they should be and what they should provide than they would that black man who they were dealing with. I know a lot of people are listening to this and they're like, what's the difference between 9 and 10? It's a big difference. With the trendy activists, they literally don't do this shit all day, every day. They're doing this because it's really trendy. They want to be an activist when it's convenient and when it actually has an aesthetic behind it. These are the type of women that would rather show up to panels than they would to actually do real activism work and do things that are actually helpful. That's why I said that I can spot a fake a mile away. And these are individuals who aren't truly pro-black. They're not truly justice oriented. They do it because it's trendy. Or in some cases, they may even have platforms already that have nothing to do with any type of activism, but then they'll make activist-like statements on there. But the activist statements are never geared towards the black community. They're literally geared towards black women. And in some cases, they may even try to, advocate for other communities before they advocate for black men. And the last one's kind of similar to the Blackarin thing. The Blackarin is somebody who, from my perspective, tends to present herself as kind of maybe a pro-black person or justice oriented, but she may make a big fuss about something that a black man did, almost in the same way that a white woman would be a Karen in certain situations. But black male blamer is more like someone who really doesn't have a justice oriented bone in their body. They're just blaming black men for shit, and they almost give off pre-divester vibes. So I wanted to just clarify that real quick. I want to be clear. I've experienced many type of chicks who are like this from my platform. Many type of chicks who will be excited to follow me because a lot of our talking points are similar, because in a lot of cases I talk about how much I advocate for black women, because I do. I love black women, and I'm going to advocate for them when they experience anti-black racism the same way I'm going to advocate for black men when they experience anti-black racism, because I care about all black people in general, not just black women alone. My point in saying that is a lot of these women will get behind me because I actually talk about uplifting black women when they experience racism and anti-blackness. And then when I give them criticism, the same way that I would give a black man criticism if he was acting like a Sambo, then they just want to go off the grid. They want to go off the rails. They want to unfollow me. They want to block me. Matter of fact, and I'm not going to say her name. I'm not going to give her any kind of clout. She's a nobody any damn way. She commented on a few of my videos some months ago. And she had a problem with me because she said that in my videos, I tend to criticize black women more than black men. And she talks about how, like, oh, you always say it's black women's fault. It's black women's fault. Y'all know damn well I don't always say that issues are black women's fault. If you ever listen to any video that I do, I always talk about how the issues that are going on in the black community are because of the white supremacists. But I will give accountability when I see Samboism, whether it's with black men or black women. And there's no question about it. I've made that very, very clear. And I've criticized both black men and black women when they're Samboing. She just didn't like that I gave that smoke to black women. So anybody who feels the need to block me because I'm giving accountability to black women who do things that are harmful to the community the same way I would with black men, they can go straight to hell. And I'm going to be honest with you, some of these chicks that be kind of getting argumentative and disrespectful with black men because we just happen to talk about the negative things that some black women do. And I want to keep emphasizing some black women because of the all police and because it's just true. I think some of them have like a kind of sexual tension type of thing. They kind of like to argue and shit. It's kind of weird because if you think about a lot of these Shea Butter Sambas, the truth is that although some of them may turn into divestors, the general consensus is that Shea Butter Sambas are actually physically attracted to black men, but they just don't want to be with them because naturally they hate them. So they're sexually attracted to them, but they don't really want to be with them for real. They actually hate them and they don't really care what actually happens to them beyond that. I've even heard some of these Shea Butter Sambas go online and say shit like, they don't like certain they like, the way that black men look and they, are attracted to them, but they wouldn't kick it with them. They wouldn't date them. They wouldn't marry them because, they have beef with them because of whatever reason. I've actually seen shit like that. So, I always think in the back of my head, it's kind of ironic how they actually have a level of misandry, but still have an attraction to black men. Anyway, that was my TED Talk. With that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I hope you all enjoyed what I had to say, and I definitely will have more to come. So make sure that you stay tuned. In the meantime, I hope you like the video, subscribe, share, and also hit the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. Other than that, I will talk to y'all later. Peace out, y'all.